All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 91 of the On Air Advocate. Where at the On Air Advocate, we look to provide education, support, and empowerment for all of those with different abilities, mental and medical illnesses, and their caregivers. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Tammy Flynn, and I am the host and producer of the On Air Advocate. And I am super excited that you are here this evening with us tonight, or whether you're catching this on the replay. Well, as some of you know, right now we are kicking off our Epilepsy Awareness Week over here at the On Air Advocate. And Thursday, November 1st, actually kicks off Epilepsy Awareness Month for the whole month of November. So I am so excited to have this phenomenal woman here with us tonight to kick off our week. She is a mother. She is an advocate, and she is also the founder and director of Fashion No Boundaries. Octavia Page, welcome.
Thank you.
I am so excited to have you. Your story, me just getting to know you through social media and all that I have read and all that I have seen and all that I've heard when I've listened to your lives, you're just such an inspiration, and I can't wait for you to share that with all of our viewers tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. I can't wait either. I'm excited.
So can you take us, Octavia, through kind of the beginning here? You have one son, two sons. Give us a little bit of your background and, where your journey started.
Oh, I have three sons.
Oh, okay.
And a daughter. My 12-year-old is the one with special needs. He was born, he's an X-24 weeker. He spent 2 months in the NICU, came home on a little oxygen, but he was still able to meet his milestones by the age of 1.5, 2. Go ahead.
So he came home, he's meeting his milestones. So when you had him at 24 weeks, did they tell you anything for sure at that point?
No.
Were they like, except for that he was that he was a preemie?
When you have your babies early, the first thing they always tell you is, oh, they won't do this, and they'll never walk, they'll never talk. We did hear the whole spiel, you can sign them over, but they don't know. And even though hearing all that, I still pursued on everything just as normal.
Okay.
Continue to pray. I kept my faith, and he did more than they thought he would do.
Mm-hmm. And so then he was so early. And so then he came home, and what were kind of those beginning stages when you guys got home? He was coming home, he was only on a little bit of oxygen?
He came home only on 2 liters of oxygen, and he was only 5 pounds, 9 ounces when he came home. So he was still really, really tiny when he came home, even though he was 3 months.
Okay, so he was in the hospital for 2 months then before he got home. And then when did you notice that slowdown of meeting those milestones, finding out about other medical conditions?
Well, when he turned 1, he wasn't doing anything that he probably should have been doing. We knew that he was always going to be behind, but that's when they offered us services to try to help him catch up. But he actually had a HIE. He got an HIE at 1.5. He went in to have
for the folks that are watching, what is that? Can you explain that?
Oh, I'm sorry. A hypoxic episode when you code he had a stomach surgery. He had a reflux surgery done.
Mm-hmm.
So he ended up coding with that procedure, and they told us that they wasn't for sure what life would be like, after losing a little oxygen to the brain. But he still met his milestone. So everything went on as normal. He ended up still meeting his milestone. He was able to talk. He was able to walk. He walked with a limp. But that was okay. He was still able to do it.
Mm-hmm. And so at what age was that kind of that turning point?
At the age of 5, he began to regress. He woke up one morning and he was no longer able to, he would just sit on the side of the bed. He wouldn't stand anymore. And we didn't know what was going on. Physical therapy came in, and the nice part about it was somebody else got a chance to watch that along with me as my child regress, because sometimes you go to the doctor, they don't believe you, or they don't fully understand you. And I actually took the physical therapist to the doctor with me to explain how he just couldn't stand up, couldn't use his legs. And from there, it went like every 2 weeks, it was something that he lost. Okay. And we didn't understand.
Right. And what did they find out that was? What was happening?
They found out nothing at that time. They ended up doing all these tests and told us that he had a neurodegenerative disease, and they put him on hospice in 2013 because they didn't have an explanation for why this was happening to him.
Did you have any epileptic seizures before that point? I mean, was he diagnosed with epilepsy and cerebral palsy and whatnot before this point?
He was only diagnosed with cerebral palsy and epilepsy, but it was just a regular epilepsy. He wasn't having seizures like consistently of nothing that we could see.
Okay.
That was the big thing. We saw when we did see a seizure, they told us it was more because he was sick, a seizure from a fever. So it wasn't like he was like seizing all the time, and they was just like, oh well, because he's past the stage of epilepsy with fevers, let's just diagnose him with epilepsy because his EEG does show epileptic form waves.
Okay.
Just in 2016 was when we officially got a diagnosis of why he regressed. All these years went by, we didn't know what was wrong with my son. We just know that he regressed. And that's when we found out that his seizures was Lennox Gastaut, and he also had electrical status epilepticus and sleep.
Okay. And that's what the other night when it was Suit Up Awareness Day, that is what Sally was referring to, right? That is right. Is that the worst form of?
That's the worst form of epilepsy that anyone can have, and he seizes 90% of the time while he's sleeping, and you don't see it. So it's not like a clinical seizure that you can see. As soon as he closes his eyes, he starts seizing. And we was totally unaware of this.
So they don't really know the duration. This could have been going on for years.
Yeah. It happens with boys, they say, between the ages of 4 and 7 that it peaks.
Okay.
So we don't know how long it had been going on, but it's pretty scary.
And that's the direct result of how he was able to do skills, and then he just started losing skills, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so you guys found that out that was in 2013 is when you actually got that firm diagnosis of that?
No, 2016. So 2013, they placed him on hospice.
Okay.
2013, he was placed on hospice. And January of 2014, he was taken off hospice because somebody told me at one hospital that that's not his diagnosis. His brain was fine. 2016 is when we found out that all of this happened because of epilepsy.
Oh my gosh. And so now, and this was the going question that we talked about on Suit Up Awareness Day. Has any doctor sat down and had that conversation with you? So now they gave you this diagnosis. What did they follow up with after telling you that this has happened, that he's seizing while he's sleeping? Did they sit down and have further conversation? Or even before this, was it ever brought up to you within him having epilepsy that this could even be a possibility?
Nobody never had that conversation with me. It has never been brought up until actually me and my husband brought it up 3 months ago, because he had went in for his 5th coma due to seizures, and we decided to bring it up. And the doctor told us, he told us that your son is living because of the ventilator. That was his exact words to us. When we requested information about Suit Up, he said they don't because it's so scary, and I'm like, I think parents should know. It's something that we should know as parents.
Right. What I can't understand, when we were talking with, the Suit Up Institute last week and having that conversation, why would a doctor, you're a rock star mom on a mission, you're an advocate, you're there with him. The more knowledge you have, the more you can do for him. You know what I'm saying? The more options you have to explore. I mean, how many conditions are conditions that can be fatal that we can find out about, our loved ones? Well, we can't do anything about it or explore more things if nobody talks about it. I just think that this is the craziest thing. That doctors are saying that, they don't want to tell parents because they would be scared. I mean, obviously when kids have cancer, when kids get diagnosed as DIPG, which is fatal, they have to have the conversation. I don't know. So at this point, when you brought it up to the doctor, what are his further, thoughts to you aside from, the ventilator's keeping him living? I mean, did he give you resources of support groups, places you can reach out to, things that you can do, options of any kind?
No, Tammy, he hasn't. My son has been so tricky as far as his medical conditions go, that so many things has happened and no doctor has been able to give us a reason of why something happened. Like he's run out of seizure meds. At one point, he was on 6 meds at one time, and it went up to like 19 medications total for him. But the question has always been, how do you prevent something like this from happening? So in 2013, my son went into cardiac arrest from a seizure, which could have been the end of his life because that's how SUDEP always happens. It happens when they sleep. Right. And he was actually asleep. And I noticed that his heart rate went down to 36 and his oxygen was going down. So I started CPR. The catch was, what if I wasn't in the room with him?
Right.
What if I didn't have a monitor at home? So I feel like every parent that has a child with epilepsy should have a pulse ox monitor.
Right. And why not? You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's not like the equipment is that huge or big,
right.
And you're right.
And it's something simple that they should have. I know that they always say that SUDEP can happen and, you don't know it. But I feel like I sleep with my son. I've been sleeping with my son every night since we found out that he had ESES. Because it's just, I just want to be with him. I don't want something to happen to him while he's sleeping. I'm not there. So this is just what I choose to do. And the doctor told me, he said that the catch is you have to be able to start CPR immediately. How many parents can do that?
Right. Unless
none of the parents say, hey, my heart rate's getting low, or hey, my oxygen's getting low.
And not all parents are equipped at home, to have extra oxygen or any of that, especially when they're not even told about it.
That's true.
No, their child has it. It's uncontrolled, but nobody talks about it. So it's not like they can arm themselves with the things to go to their doctors and say, hey, you know what, I would feel comfortable with this. Can I advocate to get this from the insurance company to have at home, just in case? The conversation isn't even being had, So now, this has only been, now that you say that, since 2016, and now we're in 2000, so 2 years ago. And what do you feel in this last, I know you said that TJ is having another surgery coming up, next week, but what has kind of been your and your family's thought process this last 2 years, with his medical stuff, where is your thoughts on this journey? And is there any other things you're exploring, or more just taking care of those everyday things that continue to come up with him on a regular basis because he's compromised? Because, we know that happens. When we're compromised in one area, something else sometimes defaults, like we were talking about, him being on IV nutrition and whatnot right now, it compromises other organs in our body. So where would you guys say from 2016 to now you guys are kind of at with the journey?
We kind of hit a rough patch with the journey, just being that he's IV nutrition and his liver is being affected. Now his gallbladder has to be taken out. Things kind of been a little hectic, but I think that our biggest thing is that we keep our faith, and then we just try to enjoy him. because sometimes you can be so up top and uptight about everything that you don't enjoy him. So every smile that I get from my son, just I take it in, you know.
Mm-hmm. And if you looked at those the posts of this, he has the most amazing smile in the whole world. I'm not trying to be like, not everybody's kids are, everyone's children are cute, but he is just and is he always smiley like that?
Yes. Yes. That's like when something's wrong with TJ if he's not smiling. Because he smiles about everything. His pain tolerance is so high.
Mm-hmm.
So high. That's the only way we knew something was wrong with him when his colon had to be taken out. Because we never see him cry. We never see him cry. So when he cries, we know something is detrimentally wrong.
Now, what was going on with his colon that had to be removed?
He ended up with NEC at the age of 10, which is only heard of when you're a newborn. Took him into the hospital with a fever of 105. We thought it was his arthritis. Well, the hospital thought it was his arthritis too. So we just watched him overnight. That morning we woke up, he was in shock. Come to find out, his colon had died in the inside, and they only had 45 minutes to get it out.
Oh my gosh.
So they didn't know. Nobody understood why that happened to him. He was not on any kind of meds that could have happened. And according to the physicians, it's something that they've never heard of. So every hospital that I've been to, I always ask, hey, have you ever heard of this? Because I've never got a reason to why that happened to him.
And you are in Chicago, right? Have you guys explored, over the years, probably more in the early years, like as things have kind of transitioned and his health has become more compromised and whatnot, obviously the struggle of traveling outside of your area and stuff becomes a little bit more difficult. Have you guys explored or done research with, any other doctors throughout the United States at all? Or has the doctors at the hospital in Chicago lent any, research things to be involved in or any of that?
Well, once the colon thing happened, they were able to reach out to other hospitals because it was something that they had not heard of, especially at the age of 10. The concern was because they had to remove a part of his colon, and 7 days later it happened again. The concern began, what is going on in his body that we can't find? So they did begin to reach out to other doctors out of state. And also one of the children's hospital early on who told me that my son didn't have CP was trying to reach out to find a diagnosis as well.
Okay.
And
but nothing conclusive in any of those findings. And then do you have your Chicago Children, is it called the Chicago Children's Hospital? Or Children's Hospital of Chicago. Do you guys have a coordinated team? I'm assuming for him and a care coordinator and all of that.
We have a complex care team.
Okay,
that handles everything.
That puts
so he's actually between 3 hospitals right now because his care is so great. And one hospital, they couldn't handle his epilepsy part, so they was like, we got to get him out of here. This is outside of our expertise. Let's get him to somebody who knows. So he's followed between 3 hospitals here. Oh my gosh. So I'm always between.
And how? So when I said to you when we logged on, I was telling her about me doing the hospital hustle today. I felt like I was everywhere with my son. You completely understand that. Where are those in location for you? Are those close or hours apart?
No, they're 30, 45 minutes apart.
Okay. That's a lot of
hour.
information. Yeah.
Yeah.
Going on with that. And your in-home help, I know that we kind of chatted a little bit about that and some of, the frustrations with being caregivers, to our loved ones and wanting the best care for them, but also needing to, survive as well in the realities of the lack of. What do you find on your end is probably the hardest struggle within whether it be lack of services or support or respite care or, those kind of things. What do you find are some of the biggest challenges today?
The biggest challenge today now is lack of nursing coming in the home to help. Because there was such a big pay decrease in Illinois from the nurses, the shortage is really bad right now. I've been just in a different world right now because we had one of our parents to pass away, and her child passed away too, because after realizing nobody was there to take care of him, he passed away after his mom. So I just feel like if she had nursing, which she was looking for at that time too, somebody could have been there with the baby.
Right.
There's a big shortage of nurses right now. The pay is horrible. We're advocating trying to get the nurses more pay. Mm-hmm. They took the pay from home health and gave it to the nursing homes. So you're just kind of just like left.
Mm-hmm. You feel like, in anything we know that we're even advocating for and fighting for and starting to, talk about on a regular basis, it takes so many years for that to change. And for a lot of us, you may not have the amount of time left before the help. I know that I have a friend here in the area, and her daughter has a complex case of spina bifida, came home after a 2.5-month stay in the hospital and couldn't even pay extra to get a nurse to come, for packing and wound care and all of this. And so even if you might...
It's stressful. It's very stressful.
I think that some people think like you would get accepted, obviously, to get funds. Well, just because I think people need to understand that just because you may be allotted funds doesn't mean there's any nurses, respite care workers, caregivers that are there to hire.
Right. And I've did the Craigslist thing. I've done it all. I've tried to hire my own help. Nothing. Mm-hmm. I've had nurses come in and just tell me, he's a lot of care, for the little money. I can't do it. And you have to respect that.
Right. Well, and it just shows how much, on that level, like kind of like teachers, that they're valued. To get paid between like $9 and $11 an hour, as a caregiver, who's going to do that when you can go to work at Culver's at the front counter for $13 an hour?
Right.
Who's going to take on these complex cases? So right now, you and your husband do all of the care?
Yes, because he has a line. I do have LPNs, but like I said, the only thing that they can do is change his diaper and suctional, because all of his meds are IV every 2 hours. So I have to give them. Can't nobody else touch the line. So, I sleep. Train your body to not off here.
If people join our community, what I've noticed in our trend is that there's this whole group of like parents that you can tell we don't sleep a lot, because then they're up and then they're online and then they're up, because it's like that rotation of a few hours of
but you get used to it. You get used to it, and it doesn't even faze me anymore. I always tell my husband, well, today's sleep is overrated.
Right. That is true. And, I think that you finding laughter, I think for other parents that are watching, is the key in all of this, because really it's not funny, but it is. You have to laugh about it. You have to smile about it. You have to find the lightheartedness in it, because if you didn't, it would truly eat you.
It will eat me up. Even when I go to the hospital with my son, a lot of the nurses know me as like the jokester. But I have to laugh, or else I'll be somewhere pulling my hair out, on 19 meds myself, just trying to deal with life.
Right.
If my son can smile through everything he's been through, I know I can smile. That's just my motto.
Now with everything, is he able to still verbalize any words at all, or mouth any words? No. Okay.
No, but he does have PICS cards that he used. He still does his yes and no. So yeah, he does have his PICS cards. And he plays with his iPad. He's not able to play with it like he used to, but at this point, I'm taking my happy kid. I don't look at the things that used to could do and can't do anymore. I'm taking him as he is.
Oh my gosh. It makes me want to smile and cry all at the same time.
I know. That's me all the time. I tell people all the time. I cannot find the I can't sit in pity.
Right.
I don't want people to think of special needs moms that their cases are pity. This is our life. This is what we do every day.
Right. That is so, so true. Is that I was talking to, well, actually I was on the radio the other day last week. And actually it was last week. See, I'm telling you, I'm losing track of my days now. And I was telling her, I'm like, there are so many things that we need to advocate and really need to be put out to communities to know that are going on in the caregiver world.
Mm-hmm.
But we are fighting every day for the quality of another person's life for the rest of their life. We don't have time to be on Facebook putting it all out there like, oh, this is going on, this is wrong. I mean, we have to conserve our energy to use to be making sure that we're, fighting for the right doctors and healthcare and they're getting the right cares that way. And, driving around from place to place, it's not even something you think about. It's not like, oh my gosh, I have to go. It's part of your everyday life. I'm sure people always say that, they're asking how your son is doing, which I think is a natural response as us as humans, always asking like, how is your child doing? Especially if they know that your child is sick. But I always say it's your everyday reality.
Yeah.
This isn't something you get to turn off and they're going to call you next week. And
right.
I'm saying
this is on 24/7.
Yeah. And for, the outside world.
Every parent has, and let me say this because I'm more transparent. Every parent had their moments when things just get like overwhelming. But what do? You go in the bathroom, because that's what I use. I use my bathroom. I go in there, I cry it out, 15 minutes, talk to God, and I'm back out and I'm good. Now that's my rejuvenation right there,
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want nobody to think that you got to be so strong in this life that you can't cry, you can't. Right. No, it's real life situations. I can cry and laugh at the same time. Anybody that knows me know I can do it. But that's just how I get through.
Mm-hmm.
I always, no matter how bad things look, I always think about the good.
Right.
I hold on to the good. Even every time, you would not imagine how many times I have been in the hospital and heard, we don't know if he's going to make it. Well, you don't know. I know somebody that do know. But I don't put my trust all into a doctor. I just don't. So I appreciate them. I respect them. But I've learned over 12 years, my son is not in the medical book that you learned from. Because if he was, you would have some answers from me of what's going on. And so they respect that. So I think it's been more harder for a physician to come and tell me as a parent, hey, Mom, we don't know what's wrong with your son.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that so many times that when I go in a hospital, I have to prepare myself. Because every parent can't take that. You don't know what's wrong and you're a physician. Well, I don't expect you to know what's wrong.
Right.
Because you only studied the book. Every child is not in the book. There's some rare things going on out here that I feel like somebody's gonna figure it out one day. Maybe TJ is the piece of the puzzle that somebody just gonna study and try to figure out. It's some rare condition,
Right.
So I don't want parents to think that every doctor don't know everything, and that's the problem. Sometimes we put all our trust into the doctor. He got to get it right. Well, what if he get it wrong? Then we still mad as a parent.
Right. Because they're not God.
They're not God, and they don't have all the answers.
Mm-hmm. And I always tell parents, when you're advocating, you're having those conversations, you need to be transparent and real with them as well. When it comes to those scary situations, do you think my child should have the surgery here? If it was your kid, would you be doing the surgery? If not, let me know. I'm fine with going to a different hospital.
That's it.
I'll still give you some money through my insurance if you need it. But, you just, I think that you need to be honest. And like you're saying, you definitely need to be transparent. And I absolutely love that about you, and that realness of, we all do. I mean, I do the budgeting. We must be in some book or something. I budget my crying, and I do it in the shower. And then if I'm driving sometimes, and we're like, oh, I can't, because then my mascara is going to run. And then all that time I took to put some eyeshadow on, ruined. So I try to budget it. I'm like, get it out. But you do have to release your feelings, and everybody does that in a different way. But I think at some point, wouldn't you say that, and this is what I'm hearing, is that you give it to God? I mean, you truly, there's a difference between saying I have faith and truly completely giving it to God and walking by and just giving it to him and saying, this is all yours.
Tammy, in the last 3 years, I have seen things in a whole different light, because I had no choice but to give it to God. If I didn't give it to God, I'd be crazy right now. My son was in the hospital literally every month, septic, in shock. And one of the physicians at the hospital walked in and told me and my husband, he said, your son has more lives than a cat. He said, I'm not going to come in and tell y'all anything else, because I don't know him from A or B. He said, and he was honest, because I always came to him and told him, look, Doc, I need you to be honest with me. Do you think this is going to get better, or what do you think? That's just the type of person I am. Don't sugarcoat it with me. Just be straightforward with me. Regardless if I can handle it or not, tell me. That way I know how I need to be praying. That's just who I am. I need to know what I'm praying for. If you think you ain't got the answer, well, let me go find somebody to do.
Right. And that's where I think, when we're talking about Epilepsy Awareness Month, and we're talking about Suit Up, I mean, this has to change. I can't understand, because if you would have been aware of it how many years back, when, TJ was maybe 4 years old, 3 years old, that it could have been a possibility. Well, then maybe you would have had him stay overnight for multiple, their EEGs, right?
Yeah.
For, the EEGs, and you would have had him do that, and maybe they would have found out. Now, maybe there wouldn't have been a resolve, to fix around, but maybe there would have. And maybe you would, what I'm saying, have explored it, further, or gotten involved in other research projects or things that way. I just, looking at parents and now hearing this from you, and then hearing this last week, and then hearing this other day from another parent, I'm like in shock. Because
they do not tell you this at all. And the doctor that he has now, he does research. So he put him in a ketamine coma. It was something that when he initially said it, I was on Google, because I love to look up everything that the doctors tell me.
But Google ain't always good.
It's not been done in the United States. It's only been done overseas. And he was like, I know. He's like, but I'm willing to try it. He's like, but I'm going to be right here. I'm going to watch him. And he did. Now, he was 90% in status. When they got done with the ketamine coma, he was 85%. So it was a little improvement, but not enough to take him out of that window.
Okay.
So, at least somebody is doing some research on to try to help that situation. But that's a situation that parents don't know about. You don't know your child have that type of epilepsy unless they really have a 24-hour EEG for a couple of days, because TJ had his EEG on for 3 days. Okay. And it took me back to when we was at the other house, the outside hospital. His EEG looked so crazy, and the neurologist at that time said, I don't know what's wrong with your son's EEG. I've never seen this before. But she just was like, oh, that's just normal for him. She didn't know how to read it. She didn't know how to read it. Because when I finally met this doctor, and that same EEG pattern was on the machine, he explained it. He was like, he's seizing the whole time you sleep. I'm like, he's been doing this a long time. I'm like, I can show you video, because I video recorded it with my phone while I was at the hospital. And he saw it, and he was like, yeah, he's been doing this for a long time then. So see, every doctor don't know everything.
Mm-hmm.
So where she dismissed it, I
Mm-hmm.
ended up finding somebody else who figured it out.
Right. And that's the
So,
biggest part of this too, is building a medical team. And
mhm.
if you're not getting your answers, moving to the next person.
Yeah,
Sometimes I feel like just because somebody refers a doctor, people feel like, oh, well, that's where I'm going to go. I mean,
yeah,
when somebody refers somebody to come side your house, do you take the first house sider to side your house? No, you get 3 different quotes, don't you?
yeah,
And I
yeah.
feel like for parents, I'm like, why wouldn't you go get outside opinions? Try a different person, hear a
Yeah.
different perspective, because you don't know, you know.
Mhm.
Everyone's teaching their experiences. How many kids they've seen with things is so incredibly different.
Yeah.
Now that you know that he has been seizing at night, and you're aware of it, have you, how would I say this? You talking about it with parents more? Do you feel like there's any built awareness from the time you found out in 2016 to 2018? Like, do you feel like there's been any growth made? Like you seeing things out there, brochures in offices, have you seen any differences in the last 2 years, as I know they're trying to start to spread awareness more?
No, no, because I feel like that's one of the things that comes with the physicians who don't want to talk about SUDEP. Because that's that rare condition of epilepsy is part of the whole pencil to the SUDEP. It's still not being talked about. You still have parents that has to go in there and ask that question that I don't feel like they should have to ask. I feel like the physician should be able to tell you, you know what, ma'am, your son has this rare condition, and this is the outcome. This
Right.
could possibly be the outcome. That should be said to us as parents. Not wait till something happened and then, because I feel like that's what happened. My son went into cardiac arrest, coded the whole thing, and then I hear, well, yeah, that can happen, but only because I brought it up. Because I know other parents who have lost their children. That's what made me bring it up. Well, why is this happening? Why? What is it that's happening when a child has a seizure? And then he explained it. It's the ones that you can't see that's taking them in the middle of the night.
Oh my gosh.
Because they're in status the whole time. So when my son goes into clinical status, my stress level is through the roof. Because I always have this fear, what if it don't stop?
Right.
And he's been in so many coma after coma. And the last time they put him in a coma, the coma made it worse. So you don't never know if the treatment is going to be a pass or fail.
So they put him into, so that's a form of a treatment if you put them into a coma to try to release that. So is that, or has he fallen into a coma because of the results?
No, they put him in a medically induced coma to give the brain a rest. They just suppress the brain activity to give the brain a rest and then slowly pull the medicine back to try to make sure that the seizures are gone.
Okay. And he's had that done multiple times now.
Multiple times.
Okay. Oh my gosh. That's so much. There are no words.
Yeah, it is.
Knowing that you're sitting there and and the thing is that I'm trying to get my head wrapped around is that it's not like TJ wasn't a medically complex kid.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's not like you're a newbie mom, or dad, that you're coming in, there's one thing going on. You were by 2013, and over these years, I mean, you're pretty schooled on, medical processes. I mean, the things that are in your home, what's going on. So a doctor not having that type of a conversation with you just seems so inappropriate, even if they thought, something that way. My question is that for all kids that don't have controlled seizures, don't you think that all of them should have overnight EEGs?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you have a
But I find that you have to press them for that. I've heard a lot of parents say that they only give their kids like a 2 or 3 hour EEG. Well, what are you going to see in 2 or 3 hours?
It's just a snapshot.
You're not going to see anything because the biggest thing you're concerned about is when they go to sleep. And especially for boys. They said that it's so rare for boys
to have
and it really strikes them at around closer time to puberty. It gets worse.
Okay, that it increases the amount of activity like while they're sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that, I'm so happy that Sally is now the head at the Suit Up. Her being a mom and a family that has traveled this journey and, hopefully really move some pavement in changing this so that families get that. And I don't think there should have to be a fight. If you have a kid that has, not controlled seizures and they're not, sure why, and meds are not working, it should be standard for them to have an overnight EEG and just, find out and make sure, especially when there's no answer. And then, she was talking about that now statistically, it's hard to rate the statistics because did you hear that about the, on their death certificates?
Oh yeah.
That they don't, because doctors don't know about it as much, so they don't put it.
They don't put it on there. I think that's not fair either.
Right, because then you can't really put out any statistics on it, right?
Yep.
You can't say one in so many kids, pass from this, which then you don't get research dollars to change.
And they don't know what to research.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I feel like that's why epilepsy in and of itself they need to figure that out more. I know they're constantly coming up with more and more new medications and the marijuana and all these things, but all those things are not for everybody.
Right.
So I just feel like the research needs to keep going because there's got to be something to help this.
Right. And there's millions. I don't have it right in front of me. I don't know if it's 3 or 30 million. Doesn't matter. It's in the million. I mean, there's millions of people who have epilepsy. And so, I think that protocol needs to change when you have epilepsy. Because I've heard almost the majority of the moms that I now know, because my son does not suffer from any epilepsy, any seizure activity of any kind. So it's not in my wheelhouse on a daily basis. But other moms that I know, all of them, there's not one of them that tells me that seizures are controlled. You know what I'm saying? That they know that the medication is working. So I feel like, oh my gosh, that's like a risk, right there, that really to dig a little bit deeper and to make sure that that's not happening in sleep. So, you're just phenomenal. That's all I have to say. Your family, your husband, and TJ smiling through all this. And you're right. This is in God's hands, and he is a miracle. And the doctor, like he said, he's got more than 9 lives. He's like a cat, and he's gonna be here. He's gonna be here and stay strong. As long as God wills it. For that. And you guys are just amazing parents, for doing this and, continuing this fight every day. And I always tell parents, you need to dig deep and realize, this is so much bigger than you're calling a doctor. I mean, this is the quality of someone's life forever, for the rest of their life that we're fighting for. But so on that, I want to turn to something. Not that we're not putting a positive twist on epilepsy and cerebral palsy and all of those things and the awareness. But one of the things about you, Octavia, that caught my eye right away when I was looking at your stuff is I'm like, in the midst of all of this, she sews and she has a fashion show for people with different abilities of all kinds. So everybody, can, strut their stuff and show their style and all of that. And there's fashion, no boundaries. And so I just want you to not only tell me and school me on it, but the rest of everyone listening, what this is all about.
So Fashion No Boundaries came about because dressing my son became like very, very difficult because of his muscle tone and things like that. And I always found myself having to adapt the clothes that I buy. I would put an extra zipper in, put some more, just had to cut and make ways for him. So I decided to wanted to make clothes to fit other people, because I can only imagine if I was having a hard time, I can only
Right.
imagine that other people were too. So after doing the first show, it was just so amazing. I sold 65 outfits. I just wanted everybody to get on a runway together and be themselves. And
And
it was so nice.
so fashion, no boundaries. You just started one day. You couldn't, getting him dressed is hard, obviously, because, you need to have buttons and snaps and
Yeah.
straps to put it on. So you decided in her spare time. This is what I'm telling you. She's such a phenomenal woman. In her spare time, she just decided to go and start sewing clothes. I was watching that video that you did where you were showing how quick you can get the clothes on and off. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's amazing. So you're sewing all of these clothes, and putting straps and putting them together for TJ.
Mm-hmm.
When did you decide that you were going to take that, though, from making him stuff to making other stuff? Like, did you put something up where people are like, oh, I would want that too? Or did it just go straight from that to saying, let's do a fashion show?
It went straight from that to saying, let's just do a fashion show. Because I felt like if I'm struggling like this, I know there's some other parents struggling too.
Mm-hmm.
And how amazing it would be just to see them on the runway, strutting their stuff, being themselves, feeling empowered. Because fashion, when you put on clothes, you feel confident. It's something about, when I put on clothes, depending on what I pick out, is how I feel, is my mood. So imagine how other people feel.
Right.
And I feel like the disability population is so left out in the fashion world. Like, how can somebody else determine what they're supposed to wear?
Right.
The clothes don't fit, they're too big, especially for someone that sits in their wheelchair all day. Their clothes have to be really adjusted. They can't have pockets up too high, they can't use them. What if they wear, what if they're in all those things. They need to be able to change their pants. I think about all of that.
Now,
I actually thought about, like, what about when my son gets older? If I'm having a hard time now and he's only 12 to dress him,
mm-hmm.
I imagine, I think forward. That's just And so Fashion No Boundaries came about, and it was such a phenomenal response that
You're
more
like,
and more ideas came in my head. And
I love it. You're like, I made him clothes, and then I did the fashion show. I'm just gonna go big.
No, I don't think small. I think big. I think about everybody. And then the people that reached out to me were people with disabilities who had ideas of clothes that they wanted. Okay, well, let me get in here and get the sewing. What color you want it to be?
Now, did people send into you like sizes, like measurements on their loved ones?
Actually, what I did was I did a whole model registration and asked them for their sizes and everything. So I just based it off the sizes that they gave me. And then when I seen them the day of the show, we just made it work. I sold the day of the show, right, sold their clothes right on them.
Oh my gosh. So now you're doing this again, right? You're doing this fashion show again, and I think you're doing it in 2 different places now.
Yes, Fashion No Boundaries is actually going to be a 501c3 organization. And we are doing 2 shows next year, one in Milwaukee in June and one in Chicago in August.
Very nice. And so how do people, well, first for the participants, if there's parents listening and they want their, young adults or their child to be involved, and is it for all ages, like 4 to 104? It doesn't matter?
It's for all ages. We are all about diversity. It's for all ages, and they can go on our website, fashionnoboundaries.com, and register. We're always looking for volunteers, brand ambassadors, models. And this Fashion No Boundaries is about everybody. We're about inclusion, like putting everybody on the runway together. We don't want to have separate events. Oh, this is for the people with disabilities, and this is for the, no. We're doing one big show.
So they mean everybody.
Everybody. I feel like the only way to make people aware is to bring awareness to people with disabilities is by putting everybody together. Because it's already enough of separation. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You got to go to separate schools. You got to take a separate bus. No, we don't have to be on separate runways. We can strut our stuff right together.
That's right. So now when they're registering, if it is for a loved one that is wheelchair bound or, needs help with that way, is that something that they have to fund to put towards the clothes that you make, or is that going to be part of the nonprofit where then you're going to make them an outfit to wear?
It's going to be all part of the nonprofit. And actually also this year we're doing things a little bit different as well too, because we want the stores to actually donate some clothes, because I feel like, and I've been talking to some others, that they just want to be able to be trendy and fashionable as well.
Right.
They don't want to have to wear the same stuff. So some people will be wearing custom mades, and some people will be wearing retail.
Okay, that will be awesome. And I know that you're growing this, because I'm seeing it growing right in front of my eyes of new people coming on board. So in whatever capacity you want to be involved, it seems as if you have that opportunity for them. Whether it is that volunteer strutting your stuff.
Yes, anybody that want to be involved, please reach out to us. We are a growing organization. A lot of the people that is on the team right now have disabilities, and they are doing it. Fashion blogging, oh my God, makeup tutorials. I'm in awe of the people that have reached out and want to do things. This is about me. It's about everybody. And that's why I'm always in the back to letting them do it.
As she's there in the middle of the night with her 2 hours of sleep, sewing, putting clothes together.
But you know what? It keeps me going.
Mm-hmm.
It keeps me going.
Most definitely. And really, I always say that, through all of our trials and tribulations in life, that's what brings us to our purpose. It truly does. And utilizing our God-given talents. And God definitely did not give me the sewing gene. So I can't take that part in the show. I have other talents.
We'll check your other talents, Tammy.
But sewing would not be one of them. So we're going to drop all the links for Fashion No Boundaries below and the website. So if you guys want to get involved, Octavia, I thank you for tonight being so transparent about your journey and sharing with our audience. Before we go though, would you say, is there any different support systems, organizations through whether it be cerebral palsy, epilepsy, or any of your other son's conditional juvenile arthritis, any of those things that you have found that they were supportive or were a good resource for you? Or would you say that more like the Facebook groups for families, so when we're looking for supports and resources?
I would say the Facebook support groups have really helped me a lot. Hearing other people's stories and seeing what worked for them and getting ideas of what to take back to my doctors to see what they think. I think that was like the biggest supports. Okay,
so there's lots of them that are out there, but if you don't know any good ones to join, I'm sure you can message Octavia and she will give you some of those, as well as she is part of the On Air Advocate Facebook community, which you can just head right to the top of this Facebook page, hit the blue button, and that will take you right into our visit group over here at the On Air Advocate. So on that note, we will drop everything below. I thank you again so much. Make sure that you give Mr. Smiley TJ, so cute. He is adorable. He'll be in our thoughts and our prayers next week. And thank you for sharing your journey with us.
Thank you.
And on that note, if you guys want any more information about any of the services that we offer over at the On Air Advocate, you can just head over to onairadvocate.com and you will find them all there. So on that note, you guys have a fabulous rest of your Monday evening. Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.